Cece's Flower Truck here in Fort Collins, Colorado. I am your host, Patti Zorr. And to everyone who is watching us today, we encourage you to please start a watch party so we can get this message out to everyone who needs to hear it. Caitlin, I am so excited to have you here with us today. I mean, I just love seeing your truck around town. It's like a moving piece of art, and it just fills my soul with like love and joy when I drive and I can just see your truck in different locations throughout the city. So welcome to No Guts, No Glory.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're having me on. And I love hearing that about the truck. I think that it's such a fun little thing that just can bring a little piece of joy to your day when you see it like tootle by, full of flowers. So I appreciate that.
So with your help, my hope is that we will help others find the courage and the strength within themselves to go out and follow their dreams. There's a lot of people at home and members of our audience watching us who are thinking like, man, I've always wanted to go out and start my own business, but I just I'm nervous. I have a really great safe job now, and taking the leap into becoming a business owner is kind of a big deal and it feels kind of risky. So I would just love it if you would tell us a little bit more about Cece's Flower Truck. What is a flower truck, and how did you come up with the idea to start Cece's?
Yeah, so I get that question a lot, like, what is a flower truck? And I forget that even though my world revolves around a flower truck, it's still kind of a relatively new concept in a lot of cities, but they are popping up around the nation. And I had seen one, and I just thought that Fort Collins would be a great market for it. We haven't had a flower truck here yet before. So what my flower truck is I have a 1968 VW transporter, it's called. And essentially, most people, I had never seen a VW transporter before I bought this one. But it looks like a VW bus, but then it has a truck bed in the back instead of the bus. So in that truck bed, I've outfitted it with racks that hold these buckets. And in the buckets, I put fresh flowers in them. And the whole concept is we do stem by stem flower sales for people to build their own bouquet at the truck, or of course, will help. Sometimes people are a little intimidated, but it all looks beautiful regardless. And yeah, the concept behind it is for it to be hands-on and also to kind of deformalize the flower buying experience. Typically to get fresh flowers, you have to go to your local grocery store or you order them from your local florist, which is wonderful. But there was still just this middle area that I think wasn't being catered to yet, where maybe we didn't want to spend $80 on the flowers, and maybe we also didn't want to just spend $10 on the flowers that may not last that long. So I think the flower truck gives us a good middle point where you can come, you can choose your own aesthetic, you can choose your own price range. We have people build bouquets that are $80, and we have people build bouquets that are $12. So I think it gives the buyer a lot more control over it. And the common thing is people love flowers. Most people love them. And I have so many people tell me like, oh, I always buy the fresh flowers at Trader Joe's and I love having flowers around. And it's common how much we all love flowers and value just having them on our dining room table. So I think this is a really fun way for people to kind of like actually enjoy the flowers beyond them just being on their dining room table. They get to go out and actually kind of pick them.
Well, it's such a fun experience too, because first of all, you're shopping at this really cute, VW bus that has been converted. So you've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
And then, you get to pick your own arrangement. You actually helped me when I picked out mine.
Yeah.
And it's so great too, because then you tie them off in this like perfect little paper with this perfect bow, and it just looks so pretty and it feels just so special. It's just something unique. You can't get it anywhere. It's kind of this, every bouquet is different, right?
Yeah.
Like no two bouquets are alike, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And it's fun to see the buyer, come and put something together. I mean, I feel like every bouquet we wrap, I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks good. Like I wouldn't have put those two things together, but that looks really good. So it's just all around. It's like you said, it's just kind of an experience, it's more so than just kind of grabbing them and throwing them in your cart or picking up the phone and ordering them. It's like this fun flower experience all wrapped into one.
So how did you come up with the idea to start Cece's?
Yeah. So I feel like I could write a small little book about this portion, so I'll nutshell it. But ultimately, this all kind of stems from, like my story is it stems from the passing of my mom, which a lot of people instantly, they kind of like, oh no, sad. And I mean, of course, that is sad that my mom passed away, but there's this really beautiful thing that got to happen and come from that, and so this truck kind of provides me as this way, like even here to continue to like talk about her today, like I get to still talk about her and carry on her memory through this truck.
Yes.
And ultimately she was sick. She had a rare cancer and she'd battled it for a long time off and on. And so our lives kind of revolved around her being sick, and I'm an only child. And they lived in the Midwest. So I'd kind of, for years, I mean, most of my adult life, I'd kind of on and off, she was cancer free for a period of time. It came back, and it was just that our lives kind of revolved around it. And even though my mom didn't want that, she was the first person that was like, go, travel, do whatever. I mean, I did. I moved away. I went to college. I lived in Florida. I moved to Colorado. So I wasn't just there, stuck there, but I definitely was teetering between two worlds for quite a long time. And she hated that, like she wanted me just to live a normal life. But I always knew that I was going to want to be near her whenever things got bad. And so I don't know if I would have done it any differently, honestly, but I was a bartender for the last 10 years, like have a college degree that I'm not using like so many other people out there. I didn't have like the perfect internship or anything like that. I honestly just bartended as I kind of moved around and, traveled and had new experiences. And in 2015, I was living in Fort Collins, and her cancer had come back, and we knew this time that it was going to be a much different situation, that this would she was already not in great health, and she was given like less than a year to live. So I put everything on hold. I quit my job at the time, which was a bartending job here in town. And me and my boyfriend, we just kind of went like back and forth between Illinois as much as we could. And she, in typical, my mom's name was Kathy, in typical Kathy fashion, she exceeded the odds. And, she lived for 4 years after that initial like 1 year diagnosis, so it was wonderful. We had all this time we shouldn't have had together, and it was so valuable. And I got to spend time with her going back and forth. And I did little, side gigs. We were Airbnb hosts at one point. I was selling essential oils at another point, bartending here and there, like just kind of doing enough to make ends meet while still having the flexibility to leave when I needed to.
Yeah.
And so she passed away last May, and I found myself in this really odd position of kind of like, now what? My whole life for almost a decade had revolved around this in a sense. And I had always kind of kept like it in the back of my head that I didn't commit to too much that was too serious. I didn't really mind that I was bartending because it gave me the flexibility and it paid the bills and it worked out. And so we moved back to Fort Collins in October of last year. So it's been almost a year now. And I was just really discouraged. And, I was 32 and had a resume that showed that I was trustworthy and showed up and made a great dry martini. And that was it, and I was just really down on myself. Like, how do I go? I was burnt out on the bartending scene.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I could actually get a job, like a career, that had benefits and all this stuff. But I had no clue where to even start. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. And I was just overall just very discouraged by it all, and anything I did qualify for, the pay wasn't great, and then vice versa. And my boyfriend is kind of an entrepreneur. He said, if you can't find a job you like, then make one. And I remember almost being like irritated by that, because it was like, oh, that just is so easy, isn't it? Like, sure,
Right.
I'll just make the job. And I believe in signs. And I swear that same week I was scrolling through Instagram. I had seen an article about a girl in Atlanta that had a flower truck. And I remember almost being like, oh, it wasn't that great, like good for her.
Right. Yeah.
So special. And then it just like a little light bulb went off. Like, well, what's stopping you from doing that? Like, why wouldn't you do that? And I instantly just like did a quick Google, like Fort Collins flower truck, and nothing came up. And I was like, Fort Collins doesn't have a flower truck. And I talked to Nate, my boyfriend, and he was like, yeah, I think that sounds great. You should do it. And I was like, there's a lot that this would require, and it took about, I remember it was around Thanksgiving. So from the end of October to Thanksgiving is when I had like pretty much decided. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to seem crazy that I was starting a business and then not succeed at it. But I told Nate and my dad, and they both were like, full force, like, that sounds awesome. That sounds just like you. You should totally do that. Like, what can we do to help? Like, do it. And I just did a ton. I had it like in my head then. I almost became obsessed with it. I did all this market research, and I was just blindly emailing people that I didn't know and direct messaging them on Instagram, like saying like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Do you have any advice to give? Or, what's your experience with this? And, most people didn't respond, but the ones that did, it was all very valuable information. And by Christmas, we had the truck in the driveway, and I had my business license from the state in January, and I had my first gig in February. So like, I got the idea, and within like 3 months was out there selling flowers. And it's just this fun, great way, productive, where, like, now I'm not ashamed to tell people like what I do for a living, where before, not that I was ashamed to be a bartender by any means, but just that I hadn't done more at the age of 32 yet,
Yeah.
that I wasn't accomplishing more yet. And yeah, it's something to be proud of. And it is, I work with flowers, like you said, like just the truck itself, and it brings joy to other people, which therefore like is going to bring joy to you. And of course it's a job. So there's lots of hard work that goes into it. But ultimately at the end of the day, I enjoy it. And I get to think of my mom while doing it. So everyone thinks my name is Cece, but my name is Caitlin with a C, and my mom's name was Catherine with a C. So I just thought that was like a fun way. And it's just another way for me to talk about her and her memory. People say, what's Cece's? And I get to say, well, actually, that's my mom, Kathy. And it's just overall been this great thing that I think has kind of come like full circle. And I truly believe kind of just like was presented to me at the right time.
Oh my gosh. That is just such a beautiful, touching story. Oh my gosh. And I love that just your mom's memory is continuing to live on. And it sounds like you're just so fulfilled and yeah, funny. Timing has a lot to do with things sometimes, so there's some kind of saying out there, good things can come out of, bad things.
Absolutely.
I totally screwed that up and I don't know.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I think that's basically it. That like, from something bad, something good can come from it.
That's
and,
it.
Not that necessarily like I would choose a flower truck over my mom passing, but it's a way to take this thing in life that happened and be able to kind of find some happiness through it, and yeah, that's just important to me. And I know that a lot of people don't have that opportunity. I know that I'm lucky in that sense, but I'm so happy that I did take the jump. And like I said, like it didn't take a lot of convincing. I mean, I had the idea on like a Thursday, and I think like 2.5 weeks later, I was like, I'm doing it, like I'm doing it. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm doing it.
Were you ever afraid, or did you have any fears, or do you remember like what your biggest fear was in taking this leap?
Yeah, I think my biggest thing that kind of scared me is in the past, I'd kind of had these excuses to kind of stay in my safe zone. Like I had lots of reasons why I could still be a bartender and it'd be okay, because this, that, and the other. And it just kind of made sense. And same thing with like these little side gigs I would do, not that I was like secretive about them, but I wasn't like bragging to my friends that I was selling essential oils, because I didn't want them to think they had to like buy them or, host party. I don't know. I just felt the need to kind of like keep it quiet and do hustle, but kind of keep it like quiet and to myself while I did these things. And this was something that I couldn't really be quiet about, like I was going to have to like blast this and tell anyone and everyone that was going to listen about the flower truck in Fort Collins, and they should come see it. And that was scary to me, that I was going to make it public and that my friends and family were going to know about it. And I have wonderful friends and family, so I don't know why I was scared of that, but it's intimidating it makes it more real. So to think of me failing at that after everyone knows about it, that was really scary to me. Like I couldn't like protect myself and stay in my safe zone with this idea. And that was really intimidating. And ultimately I just, oh well, like I had to get over that, like I had to get over it. And even now, if I had to shut the doors on the business tomorrow, I'd be so sad, but I'd be proud of doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's this sense of pride that comes from just doing it. Like, do it and I mean, how many times, isn't that a thing with entrepreneurs? They tell you like, are you really an entrepreneur if you haven't like failed,
Right.
And I think that's so much of it is just being willing to fail and being willing to see the lesson in the failure and just to kind of learn from all that. Not that I want to fail. I really want to keep going here.
Well, no, there's actually something to be said with that because most entrepreneurs, right, they say you typically fail within the first 3 years. But the whole point is just going out there and doing it
Yes.
and learning it. And if you're going to fail, fail fast because a lot of times what you start doing today isn't necessarily what you end up doing later, right?
Yeah.
It tends to evolve into something different. And so, yeah, I think the message there is just get started. And the sooner you get started, the sooner you'll start learning and then start transitioning into whatever this next big thing
Absolutely.
is. Oh my gosh, so many good lessons here. So, would you have any advice for those looking to follow their dreams but are afraid to take that
Yeah.
first step?
Well, so for me, like one thing that I often did in the past was I would look at people that maybe have a job that looks cool or, the nice house or something. And I would think like, oh, well, they must have had this experience as to why they have that. And they must have this amount of money and they must have gone to school for this and done this. And, I just had this idea that everyone was super qualified for what they were doing. And my experience has taught me, I mean, I am not a florist. I had never worked with flowers for anyone that did anything with nothing flower related ever. I didn't even know how to drive a stick shift, and my business front was going to be operated out of a manual car. I had
I
never
love
owned a
that.
business before. Like there's all these things that just should have probably in the past would have been like, why would you do that? You can't do that. You're not qualified. But I just realized, kind of going off what we had just said, like sometimes there's just more power in just doing the dang thing, and figuring it out later. Of course, there's some jobs that you have to put, you have to buy the books and go to school for it and all this. But I think there's so many things that we underestimate that you don't need to be prepared to the T for this. Like more so just do it, learn as you go, learn all the lessons you can learn and continue doing that. And that's what I did. And I see people that are going to spend all this money going back to school to learn this trait or to spend thousands of dollars for the online course and the books and all this stuff, and or maybe do all the market research for years until they feel safe. And it's like, you could have already done it. You may have already done it and failed, but at least you did it and you knew, like you said, fail fast or you're not going to. And I think that's the biggest value is to just stop thinking that you have to have everything lined up, that there's more value in doing it where you are with what you have, and B, to just not assume that everyone else has also done the same thing. Because I've found too, by just talking to other people, that most people are like, I didn't know how to, do anything according to that, but I did it and here we are. And I learned so much and now they're like a leader in that field. And I think that's what we need to hear more stories of, because it's intimidating, especially on social media, when you see everyone look like they have it all figured out, but they probably didn't at one point, they
Oh
just made
yeah.
a step.
I can tell you I've made a ton of mistakes along the way. I'm still making mistakes, right? I probably invested in some programs I really didn't need or thought I needed. Even with working with clients sometimes, right? I maybe bite off more than I can chew at times. So yeah, or learning to say no. That's
Yes.
something like I've run into because I sometimes feel like I can be all things to all people, but then it's like, okay, well, what is really the best use of my time? So it's totally true. Yeah, you're going to make a ton of mistakes, but for me, I see it as it's a learning opportunity. I'll know the next time, right? And
Yeah.
every day I'm getting better and learning along the way. And even still, I think, okay, I think what I'm doing now is going to continue to, evolve into something bigger and better. And so, yeah, it's really exciting times. And, your story, I think, is such an important one. And it really tells people you really can do anything you want to do, right? You just have to want it. You've got to take that first step,
Yeah.
lean into the fear, get over the fear, accept the fact that you're going to make some mistakes,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yes. And I think those mistakes, like the way I look at it, is because I don't have the education and floristry, and I don't, I didn't go to these classes or anything like that. And I just use like my mistakes that I make. I see those as like the investment, like, okay, maybe I lost this amount, I lost a couple $100 on this pop-up because I didn't do it right at the time. I didn't know how else to do it. But from that one pop-up, I learned not to do it this way, and this way. And it might've cost me a couple $100, but I will never make that mistake again. And that in of itself is valuable, And so I think that, yeah, there's just a lot of lessons to be learned in just doing it, and then there's things you figure out that you did right. And you're like, okay, great. That worked out, like I made the right call and that paid off, and you'll continue to do it. And I think that that's just incredibly valuable. And like you said, making the mistakes, that sometimes the mistakes are the most valuable things, they make the biggest like imprint in our minds that we'll never forget it. And you'll continue to learn that way.
Oh my gosh, Caitlin, thank you so much for your time today. So many valuable lessons here to just follow your dreams. You really can be fulfilled and do what you love to do. You really are like the American dream, and I just love it. And I love what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And yes. If anybody has any questions, please leave them in the comments. We will be watching them. And again, please, if you're watching, start a watch party so we can get this message out to all those who are, thinking about, making that next move in their life, in their career, and really doing what they love to do. It really is possible.
Yes.
Thanks again to all of our viewers, and thank you, Caitlin. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest